Everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here because we're diving into a story that is, frankly, profound. It's a tale about life, faith, and the genuine pursuit of happiness. We're going to unpack a narrative that totally challenges what we think we know about success. We're talking a journey from the absolute pinnacle of royal opulence straight to the stark, rugged isolation of a mountainside, all to answer a question humanity has literally wrestled with for centuries. So get ready, because this story, it might just change how you look at your own life. Let's get right into it.
So, think about this for a second. Can the cold, hard floor of a tiny hut actually bring more peace than a literal golden palace? It's a massive paradox, isn't it? I mean, we spend so much of our time chasing that golden palace, the big promotions, the stacked bank accounts, the luxury. But what if the peace we're actually craving is found in the exact opposite direction? To truly understand the meaning of wealth, we need to look at the life of someone who had absolutely everything money could buy, yet felt like she had absolutely nothing that mattered.
Okay, let's dive into this. Part 1. The Golden Cage, Wealth versus Inner Emptiness.
We start our story with Queen Sumaya. Now, she was the ruler of a massive, wildly prosperous empire. We're talking absolute wealth here, the kind of insane luxury most of us can't even fathom. Imagine waking up to 50 maids just standing there, ready to serve you. Picture walls covered in intricate gold designs, massive crystal chandeliers, and priceless Persian carpets everywhere you step. Sounds amazing, right? But underneath all that opulence, her inner world was completely starved. When she stood on her grand balcony staring at the stars, she just felt totally disconnected from her creator. She knew her courtiers were only worshipping her throne out of pure self-interest. To Queen Sumaya, those gold walls weren't a sanctuary at all. They literally felt like a giant, suffocating cage that was slowly swallowing her whole. Which brings us to Part 2, The Storm's Revelation, a collision with reality.
So this emptiness, it becomes totally unbearable for her. Desperately needing just a moment of peace, away from the stifling palace, the queen decides to go on a secluded hunting trip to the edge of her kingdom with just a few trusted guards. But, destiny had a completely different plan. Out of nowhere, this terrifying, life-altering dust storm sweeps through the forest. The sky goes pitch black, hurricane-force winds are literally ripping giant trees out of the ground by their roots. And then, bam! A massive bolt of lightning strikes right in front of her, setting a tree ablaze. In that one terrifying split second, she has a massive revelation. She realizes just how helpless she actually is. All her armies, her vast treasury, her fancy royal titles, none of it, and I mean none of it, could protect her from the raw, untamed forces of nature and her own mortality. Her horse completely panics, throwing her off the path, and she gets dragged through these thorny bushes, her incredibly expensive silk clothes just getting torn to shreds. And this brilliantly illustrates the turning point. Lost, terrified, and totally stripped of her worldly power, the queen somehow stumbles into this deserted valley. And right there, she finds a humble shepherd named Abdullah. The contrast here is just stunning. On one hand, you have Sumaya, trembling, her royal garments in absolute ruins. And on the other, you have Abdullah, sitting there so calmly by a fire in these heavily patched clothes, just totally at peace as his sheep graze around him. His life wasn't governed by ticking clocks or strict court schedules, It was governed simply by the sunrise and the sunset. Moving right along to Part 3, a royal sacrifice, finding peace in poverty. So Abdullah doesn't even recognize her as the queen, but he warmly offers her shelter from the dangerous mountain night anyway, and he serves her the only food he has, a simple bowl of warm goat's milk and a few pieces of dry bread. But to a starving queen, that dry bread tasted way better than any ridiculous 56-course feast back at the palace. When she asks him, how he could live out there all alone without being afraid, he simply says, "I am not alone. My creator is with me. He who has the creator of the heavens and earth with him, what is there to fear?" Wow. Just let that sink in. Later that night, looking through the window, she watches Abdullah standing barefoot in the bone-chilling, freezing cold, crying in deep prayer. He was radiating a kind of peace she had literally never known. It shook her to her absolute core. That single night absolutely changed everything for her. She goes back to the palace, but now, the silk sheets feel like thorns, and the heavy gold jewelry feels like iron chains. So just 5 days later, she makes this shocking decision. She completely abdicates the throne, leaving the whole kingdom to her young, inexperienced brother, Prince Tariq. She actually sneaks out of the palace in the dead of night, walking barefoot through the sharp, rocky desert until her feet are literally bleeding. And by day 10, she arrives back at that tiny mountain hut, and she does the unthinkable. She proposes marriage to Abdullah. She asks to just leave her royal identity behind forever and live as a simple woman devoted to her creator.
So the crucial point here is how stunningly simple this union was. Their dowry wasn't, a chest of diamonds or a neighboring province. It was literally just one flock of sheep. They were married by a passing nomadic scholar, and just like that, the queen of a massive, powerful empire became a peasant. Her soft royal hands that used to casually hold a scepter, quickly developed these painful blisters from manually grinding wheat against stones all day. But here's the thing. With Abdullah's gentle care, applying mountain herbs to her wounds, she found a happiness she had never, ever experienced in that golden palace.
Part 4. The Kingdom in Ruins. The Cost of Inexperience.
Now, while Sumaya was finding her peace up in the mountains, the capital city was completely falling apart. Her young brother, Prince Tariq, was thrust into power, and he had to learn the brutal cost of his own inexperience real quick. Without Sumaya's strong leadership keeping things in check, these corrupt, greedy ministers pounced like a pack of hungry wolves. First, they raised unjust taxes. Then, when the poor farmers couldn't pay, the ministers actually robbed them of their very last cows. Prince Tariq tried to stop it, but a cunning minister quickly reminded him that the army answered to them, not him. Tariq was basically a powerless puppet. Because of all this, farmers just stopped growing crops. The royal treasury was emptied out, and before long, innocent citizens were literally starving to death in the streets. A complete and utter collapse.
Which leads us to Part 5, the people's plea, a desperate journey for salvation.
The situation in the kingdom had become entirely unlivable. Tariq was desperate and totally heartbroken. He sneaks out into the streets in disguise, and what he sees, a starving child crying out for the Queen Mother, it just breaks him completely. So he gathers the poorest, most desperate citizens and leads thousands of them barefoot and crying all the way up that harsh mountain path to find Sumaya. When they finally get there, Tariq literally falls at her bleeding feet, just begging her to come back. Now Abdullah, he firmly refuses. He has zero desire to go back to that toxic, power-hungry palace environment. But then Sumaya takes his hands, and she brilliantly uses his own teachings against him. She says, worship isn't just sitting on a prayer mat. Feeding the hungry is also a great act of worship. She makes him see that they couldn't just turn their backs on thousands of starving people just to protect their own little bubble of isolated peace. Deeply touched by her wisdom, Abdullah finally agrees.
Part 6. A righteous reign. Justice without bloodshed. Let's see how this builds.
Their return to the city was incredible. Tears of joy, showers of flower petals everywhere. But fixing this broken kingdom, that was going to require a completely new kind of leadership. Young Tariq, he was angry, and he wanted to execute the corrupt ministers on the spot. But Abdullah stopped him. He taught them that true justice doesn't actually require unnecessary bloodshed. So they took a different approach. Step 1, confiscate all the illegally obtained wealth from those corrupt ministers and put it right back into the treasury. Step 2, spare their lives but completely strip them of their power, making them work out in the fields as common farmers so they could finally learn the true value of sweat and hard labor. And Step 3, seeing this incredible, merciful wisdom in action, Prince Tariq voluntarily steps down. With the passionate urging of the people and Sumaya, a very hesitant Abdullah is officially crowned the new king.
But get this, becoming king absolutely did not change Abdullah. And it didn't change Sumaya either. Instead of some massive royal bed, they still slept on a simple mat on the floor. That's actually where Sumaya taught Abdullah the intricacies of statecraft and how to read maps. They kept their austere, humble lifestyle, and they'd regularly sneak out in disguise at night just to monitor the streets and check on their citizens. During one of these patrols, they discovered a starving widow who was boiling stones in water just to trick her crying children into falling asleep. King Abdullah was so devastated by this that he rushed straight to the treasury and hoisted this massive, heavy sack of flour onto his own back. The royal guards obviously rushed over to help him, but he totally refused. He told them that no one else could carry the burden of his guilt on Judgment Day. Together, the king and queen went back and baked bread for that family themselves. Truly servant leadership in action.
Through that kind of incredible dedication, they completely turned a ruined state into a thriving, prosperous society that actually provided for its orphans and widows. And really, that brings us to the ultimate lesson of this explainer. The takeaway here isn't that we all need to abandon the world and live in a hut. Rather, it's that wealth and power are not inherently evil, not if they're utilized for the welfare of others. Queen Sumaya and Abdullah proved that true peace doesn't come from the gold plastered on your walls. It comes from a pure heart, genuine love, and living a life dedicated to serving humanity.
Which leaves us with this final, provocative thought. Take a real, honest look at your own life, your resources, your influence. Are you using whatever wealth and power you have to serve others and uplift the people around you? Or are you, kind of like the queen at the very beginning of our story, unknowingly trapping yourself in a golden cage? It's definitely a question worth asking yourself today. Thank you so much for joining me in unpacking this beautiful story. I hope it inspires you to find your own true peace. Keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.